This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I've been looking forward to this program for a long time because I know that I certainly could benefit from it. And we had a great program, Heidi, with you last fall. So to everyone who's joining us on as a recording from the YouTube channel, welcome. You're in for a treat. I'm Tracy from Met How at Home. This is part of our Get Ready series. Get ready to live our best lives by being proactive and embracing and going with all the changes in life, all the phases and all the changes. And so stress is definitely part of the life story, and learning how to work with it, I think, is just so helpful. So thank you, Heidi. I'll let you complete your introduction, and with that, I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Tracy. And thanks everyone so much for coming today. I'm so excited about this information. I use it in my own life. I've used it on hundreds of clients and patients with really profound effects. So, the more things we can gather in our toolbox to handle stress, the better, right? So, my name's Heidi Blacke. I'm going to do a little more deeper intro, but I want to get a sense of kind of over the past week, how many of you have, or 2 weeks, how many of you have had feelings of being overwhelmed or stressed, or maybe your sleep was disrupted by thoughts, or you were having kind of what we call ruminations, where you have things rumbling around in your head and you just can't let it go? Has anybody had that? Yeah, a lot of us, right? Kind of the human condition. And it turns out we're not alone. According to the American Psychiatric Association, they do surveys every year since 2007 to kind of assess where people are in America in terms of how much stress they have, how many symptoms they have, what are their stressors. And 72% experienced more than one symptom in the last month. Majority of symptoms that were in common were headaches, anxiety, worrying, changes in sleeping habits, feeling overwhelmed. 27% reported that most days they are so stressed out they can't function. Wow. Additional symptoms are forgetfulness, inability to concentrate, trouble with decision making, lack of focus, attention. We're kind of thoughts rumbling around too much in our heads, and not able to really attend to where we are right now. And many stressors, external especially, and some internal, are completely out of our control. But I'm here to tell you today that you actually have a choice in how you respond to each and every stressor that you're faced with. And I'm going to show you ways to calm your nervous system and really increase your capacity so that you can respond in a way that's healthy for you. So my name's Heidi Blacke. I'm an occupational therapist. I've been practicing for 25 years, and I actually started in psych. I was working on a locked psych unit here in Seattle in a hospital, teaching life skills classes to patients. And actually one of them was stress management. This has evolved a lot since then, and the research has evolved a lot since then. So when I was in grad school, we were taught that you're born with all the neurons in your brain that you'll ever have. And what you kill in college or, have die off over life, that's it. Now, the research shows that we have what's called neuroplasticity. This means that we can increase connections in our brain. We can increase the speed by the myelin that kind of encases the connectors, and we can actually produce new neurons in our brain. So it's super empowering. This is at any age. You can learn, you can change your brain, you can rewire your brain at any age. So I'm really excited to share this information. I worked for many years in rehab with people who had injuries that they were recovering from. And I decided to kind of start my own business where I want to optimize people's lives. I want to teach them how to avoid injuries, but even more than that, how to really navigate life in a way that you thrive and you find ease. And like I said, these techniques I've used with hundreds of patients and clients, and I've used myself, and there's actually a ton of research that backs up their effectiveness. So I'm excited. My goals today and learning objectives are, we're going to start out with talking about stress and stressors and what it is. We're going to talk a little bit about the effects of stress. And did everybody get a couple handouts? Okay, so you have a handout that has a person on it, and that has lots of long-term kind of chronic effects, symptoms on there. Those are not all by any means, but they're a lot of the things, a lot of the changes. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. I want to spend a lot of the time on the techniques today, and then I'm going to introduce this concept of responding to stress versus reacting to stress. And then we'll end with techniques that will help quiet your nervous system and build your capacity. With my teachings, I really like to do an interactive format. I'm not a PowerPoint person. I like to have a conversation. I learn from you. You can learn from each other. I think the more you can kind of think about and apply, the more you'll get out of this. So this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then I hand it over to you to kind of practice these things throughout your life. And if you do, I can guarantee you'll get some really positive effects. So what is stress? And I'm throwing it out to anybody who wants to raise your hand. If you have your camera on, or you can just do like the little hand in the screen too, if you don't have your camera on.
There's a hand in the screen. Also, I have muted folks, so
oh, okay,
because there's some background noise. So go
okay.
ahead and unmute yourself if you have a response. Don't be shy. Lisa, you look like you have a response.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think. I'm in Michigan. We have had a really bad ice storm, and so stress was a lot of people. I have two friends over right now who have lost power and heat, and stress was yesterday driving to one of my friend's houses to pick him up because the lines. I was afraid the lines or a tree would come down. Tree branches were falling in the streets. It was dark. And as I was going down some of the roads, you could see the streetlights go off. So it was kind of a white knuckle ride.
Yeah.
And I'm just over COVID. So I've I've been kind of COVID brainy. Oh, so stress. Yeah. I don't know if I'm not giving really a definition, but I'm giving an example, I guess.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Absolutely.
That's high stress right there, Lisa.
I've been in the white knuckle driving, and I was on a trip across the country, and it was the biggest blizzard from where I started in Utah all the way to Iowa. It took us 3 days of driving 30 miles an hour in snow, like blizzard conditions, trucks going across the median into oncoming traffic and on I-80. Cars, hundreds of cars flipped. I listened to the same cassette tape for 10 hours because I didn't want to take my hands off the wheel to change it. It was so scary. So yeah, it's totally, yeah, that's such a great example. And, it's kind of what we're going through right now, right?
So where was
Thank you.
this?
This
Where-
was in 92.
And where? And
I was driving from Utah to New Hampshire. It was Thanksgiving, and every time I was about to get to a state line, I'm like, surely as we hit Nebraska, it's going to stop snowing. Nope. Illinois, nope. Iowa, no. I mean, it was crazy. It was death highway. But we made it. In my little Honda Civic, that the cables flew off 5 miles after I had put them on. It was an experience. My cat was in the car. I had all my stuff, my bike. It was not fun.
No.
But stress can mean a lot of things, and we all have a different response. And that's based on our perceptions, our experiences, the conditions, how we're feeling. And we don't all perceive a stressor the same way with the same intensity. Merriam-Webster defines stress as a physical, chemical, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension and may be a factor in disease causation, which I find the disease causation piece interesting. But it actually was in 1978 that the whole concept of stress was kind of developed and defined. And the man Hans Sell, who kind of originated it, he defined it as the non-specific response of the body to any demand for change. And I have to say, I kind of like that definition because it's not assigning a good or a bad. A lot of times we think of stress when it's a bad thing. And stress actually has a very important role in our ability to adapt to our lives. It's when it becomes out of control that, or overwhelming, that we then kind of feel the real effects of it and assign it, a meaning of not being good. But it can prompt us to act, to focus, to plan, to organize, to keep us alert when we're driving through harrowing blizzard. And it keeps us, out of danger, hopefully. So it's a normal part of every living organism on this planet has to go through stress, and it helps build our capacity. Again, it's when it's too much that it becomes problematic and can cause disease. Resilience is the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. And the exercises today, combined with healthy lifestyle choices, will really help build your capacity and your ability to recover from stressors. So the things that shape our response, like I was saying, are, our perceptions, our experiences. The size or the type of stressor doesn't necessarily dictate the response that we have, because it's different for everyone. I've had people who are 2 people in the car, they're in a car accident, same accident, no injuries. One person shakes it off, gets back in the car and drives. Another person is traumatized, doesn't want to get in the car and drive, doesn't really want to be a passenger because there's no control over the wheel and how close you are to other cars. It's not good, bad, or otherwise, but it's just showing you that 2 same events experienced very differently. So I think it's important to realize something that may be affecting you or a partner or a friend differently than them, and to be aware of that. Definitely multiple stressors are going to compound the effects. You were just saying how you're kind of COVID brain and you're getting over it, and then you got in the car. So, had you not had COVID, you may have been a little bit more relaxed in the car as you were driving. In my own life, I had a very crazy lifestyle for a whole number of years. After I graduated from graduate school, I had 3 to 5 sometimes jobs. I was training for a half Ironman. I was riding my bike. I was riding horses 3 days a week. I had just bought a home. Like from the moment I got out of bed, I was running until the moment I went to bed. And I did this for years and it was crazy. I felt like life was living me. I was so high on my threshold. I had no bandwidth to respond. And what happened was it really taxed my immune system. I ended up with lots of chronic injuries I couldn't recover from. And I kind of strung myself together with supplements and massage and physical therapy and acupuncture. And I didn't change my lifestyle. I just kind of kept going and patched myself together. But I eventually started to have fatigue and more recurrent illnesses. And then in the course of 6 months, I had a car accident. I lost my dog of 10 years, who was like my soulmate. 2 months later, I got a puppy who's crazy, and my husband was a cat guy. And that was so stressful. And I was sleeping on the kitchen floor trying to crate train her. And then a month later, my sister committed suicide. And oh, my wedding happened to be 6 weeks after that. So then I got married. I completely cratered after that. For 2 months, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't work. Then I sort of recovered a month. And then a year later, my mom was having a lot of pain and health problems. So I moved in with my parents in California for 3 months. She ended up having bone cancer. I managed all of her medical care, got her on hospice, and kind of spent the last 3 months with them. And then a month after she passed, I was back down in California with my dad, who had open heart surgery. So I lived with him for a month. And then I got back 6 months later, I lost my job of 14 years. So after that, I started, my lifestyle was not good. It completely taxed me. I had no capacity. And then it was stress after stress after stress after stress. I got very ill. I couldn't work. I couldn't drive. I was in bed several days a week. And it took me a long time to recover. And so it was a big wake-up call to live my life differently. And I'm grateful for it, because I really found ways to live, not feel like I'm just running crazy through my life and I have no capacity to respond. And I've done a lot of experimentation with different techniques to really try to calm myself, because what all that stress did for me was it caused tremendous amounts of inflammation in my body. Every system in my body was inflamed. And it just over time with that, I mean, it's like a 3-alarm fire for years. It has effects. There's no getting away from it. There's no getting around it. So I've learned to really not only put out the fires, but to learn how to keep the fires from lighting. And that's what I want to share with you. So the effects of stress on our body, I just talked about that. Inflammation. So short-term stress, this is what we're wired for, right? It's for the event to happen, us to respond, and then we go back to homeostasis, and we're living from that kind of rest and restorative part of our body. Initially responding to a short-term kind of, our short-term effects, we feel our heartbeat increase. We may feel butterflies in our stomach. We may feel like, oh, I can't think clearly. I can't organize. May have a pit of feeling in your stomach. You know, a lot of people have in different symptoms, right? At the beginning, I was telling you about kind of the majority of respondents in that survey had headaches, they had fatigue, they had feelings of overwhelm or forgetfulness. But long term, if we have kind of that stress at a slow simmer, the effects are more subtle to notice, right? They're just kind of, and we can habituate to it, which means, we can kind of see this as normal. But years of the low simmer lead to changes in our cardiac system, our digestive system, our endocrine system, reproductive, our cognitive system, our brain, our nervous system. It even affects genetic expression, which means that you can pass it down and you can inherit it from previous generations. And that's called epigenetics. And for people who are aging, it can be more difficult to cope because maybe your body can't physically handle stress the same way it did when you were younger. You may have a harder time recovering from stressful events. It may be harder to cope mentally and emotionally, especially with COVID. A lot of us were isolated. That really reduces your capacity. Your support system may not be as big. You may not sleep as soundly as you did, and sleep is hugely important and healing and building that capacity every day for us to be able to respond. Do any of you have effects that you feel when you're confronted with a stressor, like when you were driving in the car, or any other symptoms that you feel when you feel something's happening, I need to respond or react?
Yeah, go ahead and just unmute and so you can respond.
Yeah, I don't want to do all the talking.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the only participant, but sometimes I just totally go blank. There's just like empty slate there, and I can't really put my thoughts together.
Is it kind of like a freeze response a little bit?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just, yeah.
Yeah,
think
I
I'm
get that
better at
too.
it. As I'm getting older, I think I'm better at it than when I was younger.
Good.
As far as reacting. But yeah, I have noticed that it's just kind of white space or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can get, shaky. I can
Mhm.
notice this like shaking happening, and definitely that increase in the heart rate, and yeah, a little bit of freeze, but more like just too much.
It's hard to organize. Yeah, anybody else? And a lot of times our breathing gets shallower and we breathe up here and we
Uh-oh,
can't get
I
enough
think I'm
air, and
frozen.
that can increase it. Tracy, were you finished? You froze for a moment.
I know. It's saying I have a strong signal, so I don't know why I'm freezing, but yeah, good enough. Yes,
Okay.
finished enough.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll keep going. So I want to introduce you to this concept of response versus reaction. And like I said, it's important to realize that we have a choice in how we respond to our world, both the internal world and the external world, even if it feels like we don't. So we have two main areas of our brain from which we respond or react to a stressor. And they're at opposite ends of the evolutionary spectrum. So our survival brain is our primitive brain. This is in every mammal, every organism who has, not every organism, but most of them, to keep us out of danger. So the primitive brain, the survival brain. And then we have the most evolved part of our brain, and that's the prefrontal cortex. So evolutionarily, we are wired to react. Our primitive brain is the fight, flight, freeze part of our brain. It's immediate. It's reflexive. It kicks in without us even having to make a decision. it has a protective role. This is the person who's like the tiny woman who pushes the car off her child. This has tremendous capacity to help us avoid danger. When the threat is over, though, we are supposed to return to homeostasis. And the problem is that in our culture, we have so many external stressors that are ongoing, we don't ever return to homeostasis. So those hormones that are released, the blood that leaves our digestive areas, the slower heart rate, all of that never really returns to pre-event state. And so it's kind of can cause problems, right? I was just talking about some of the effects. It also applies to our internal stressors, which are our thoughts, our emotions, our physical limitations. And with the ongoing stressors, inflammation, it can lead to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, cardiac conditions, dementia. There's a lot of research that has, at least as a contributing factor and possibly at the root of some of the really big illnesses that we're facing today. So that's the survival kind of primitive part of the brain. And that's where we're wired. We're hardwired to respond from there. The prefrontal cortex, our most evolved part of our brain. This is what separates us from everyone else, right, on this planet for the most part in terms of mammals. But it is where we have highest order thinking, reasoning, problem solving, decision making, comprehension, impulse control, creativity, and it connects to every area of the brain. It has a huge integrative role. This is where we want to respond. But here's the thing. It takes time to kick in, 30 seconds. So where I was saying your primitive brain, that's reflexive. That is so fast. Prefrontal cortex, 30 seconds. This is where mindfulness comes in. This is where building the capacity comes in. This is where some of the exercises that I give you today can help to kind of fill that 30 seconds. But we have to pause. We have to take just a little break to be able to access that part of our brain. But here's the thing. Earlier in this talk, I was telling you about neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain. So let's say we have patterns of responding or reacting. Those hone, those get strong, those patterns, but we can change it. And what we do more often, what we practice more often becomes permanent. We build those patterns in our brain, and then that's how we're going to respond more naturally without having to think about it. But until then, we have to think about it. So I was driving to work several years ago, and I, after working in the same place for a whole lot of years, I really honed my commute so that I had as few stoplights as possible. I didn't have, I avoided areas of traffic, and it was very early in the morning, and I'm driving in. And in Seattle, we have roundabouts at all the four ways. We don't have stop signs, it's these roundabouts. And my husband and I, we disagree on this, but I looked it up. If nobody else is in the roundabout, you can go left if you're going to that like 9 o'clock street. It is legal. He says it's not. And after this experience, I don't. But so I did that. It's like 6:45 in the morning. Nobody's out. Guess what? I cut someone off who reacted, got so on my bumper. He followed me miles to the parking garage at work. So that person at 6:45 in the morning was up here and just reacting. I was terrified. I kept turning right every time I hit a stoplight because I was like, but he probably had a pattern. Car cuts me off, I react with anger and rage. What we wired together fires together. If we choose, okay, car cuts me off, no big deal. That person, they don't know, they should listen to their husband, whatever. But the more we can choose situations that are less kind of emotionally charged, the better able we will be to build these patterns. So the more emotionally charged the stressor, the closer you are to threshold, and the more patterned your response is, the harder it is to respond rather than react. So setting yourself up for success with things like, oh man, I was going to just run in the store for a quick item, and I got there's one checker and there's 10 people in line. Okay, wait, this is a good time to practice activating my prefrontal cortex. So choose situations that are not emotionally charged or have a long history of patterns of reacting. Even noticing our response that we don't like or want to change next time is huge. So just being aware of, I didn't really respond the way that I want to. I'm going to work on that. That's huge. That's the start of changing how we react or respond to stressors. Any questions so far? Okay.
And if you are not able to come off of mute, you can always use the chat. Just push that chat button and you can put anything you want into the chat. Sometimes it stresses people out to talk on Zoom. So,
you know what?
You can put
totally.
it in the chat.
And that's okay. Chat is great. Just type it in. Okay. So I've been talking a lot about, okay, we need to respond, not react. Activate that prefrontal cortex. Let's do some rewiring. So how are we going to do it? Well, it comes down to the nervous system. And if we practice and integrate habits that strengthen the tone of our rest and kind of restorative part of our nervous system, then we increase our capacity from which to respond versus react. So in addition to the techniques I'm going to show you today, things that you can do just on a daily basis that can really help improve your capacity is to know your triggers. What are your triggers, internal and external? Things that you can avoid them. I'm going to pick on the news because that is something that triggers me. I feel like it's inflammatory. It instills fear and anxiety. I don't think I've ever felt better by hearing the news. It's important to know what's going on. And I do that in looking at headlines and reading, but not listening. But I've had many clients who they watch CNN or Fox or listen to the news all the time. And it does affect our capacity. If that's you, get what you need to stay informed and then turn it off and do something that kind of fills you up. There are stressors that may be triggers that we have to deal with and we have to live with. Stressors that have no endpoints. It could be a job that you don't like, or it could be a living situation that's not really ideal, or caring for someone who's sick that has no endpoint. That's where you look at other parts of your life where you can really nourish yourself so that you have more capacity to navigate those kind of ongoing stressors that can be really challenging. Sleep is hugely important. It is the time that we rest, we repair, we clean out. We have fluid that kind of goes through the brain and flushes out kind of all the waste products. Lots of processes. And actually what the research shows for optimal kind of setting the conditions for neuroplasticity, getting really good sleep, deep sleep, that's 7+ hours a night. Diet is hugely important. Sugar is highly inflammatory. Caffeine causes anxiety. Alcohol is a depressant. So diet is huge. And then exercise. Those three things really optimize the conditions for neuroplasticity. And what the research shows on exercise is 30 minutes a day of vigorous exercise. So not yoga or just kind of a stroll along the river, but doing something that is, it may be a little hard to talk during, that's vigorous. Keep it safe though. If you have, fall risks or conditions where you can't get your heart rate above a certain beat per minute. But exercise is, there's so many studies that say show exercise as being just as effective and sometimes more effective than antidepressants and some mood stabilizers. It also helps with sleep. And it helps kind of to get your mind off other things and be present. Experiencing nature. So getting out into nature there's a lot of research that really supports the benefits of being out in nature. If you can't get out, plants, get some house plants. It really can change the environment. Companies that have plants and some natural areas within the workspace versus sterile ones that don't show big differences between the employees and their overall well-being in both environments. Support, really important, is having support, having a community where you feel you can interact and you feel a part of. We're social creatures. It's really important to have that. And there's a lot more, but does anybody have any other things they do on a daily basis that really help kind of ground you or calm you? You can type it in the chat too.
I was just going to say music. I play the piano, and that just is. I've played since I was a kid. I was a closet pianist for years, and now I'm in a couple of bands. But it's just lovely just to be able to sit down and play and not be performing or anything, just to relax.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. That's such a good one. Kim has jigsaw puzzles. Love it. Yeah. And paint classes. Yeah. Art. And using, different parts of the brain. Meditate every evening. Sally, you're talking my language. That's awesome. For 20 minutes. Baking. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love the smell. I mean, there's so many aspects, so many senses. Same with music and painting and art. You're really bringing in the senses. It's great. Walking with dogs. Yeah. Yeah. Singing in the car and the shower. Yeah. I do that when no one's in the car.
Yeah.
And the windows are rolled up. I don't need to hurt everybody's ears around. Reading a great novel, dancing in the kitchen. Yeah.
Yes. Woo.
You guys have some great ones. Yeah. Love that. All the self-care. Yeah. Relaxation, all these things kind of help fill you up. When I used to treat patients, I'd always ask, what do you do for relaxation? And everybody, I don't relax. I don't have time to relax. I'm on the move. I'm moving. I like it. I don't like to sit. I don't like to do nothing. And I was that person too. And it's so important that you take that time for you to do what really fills you up. And it's different for everybody. We had a lot of different responses. And so exploring that and trying that out and seeing what really helps you is so important. I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the techniques that we're going to do today. And then we're going to just take a short break and then we're going to do them. So the techniques we're going to use today will improve your resilience to stress if you practice them. And one person, I think it was Carol, does meditation, which is one of the things that we're kind of going to do today. But the amazing thing is all of these exercises or techniques that I'm going to give you, they work at the level of the conscious brain and the subconscious, which is, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And how many of those are we intentionally thinking about? Not many. I've seen studies where it's 5% of our day is intentional thoughts, the conscious brain. The rest is subconscious wiring from our past and previous. So these techniques also are really good to use for good stress too, or anxiety, or any situational feelings that you might be having, or you're tired, or you're getting a sore throat or whatever. These can be useful then. So the first one we're going to talk about is mindfulness. And mindfulness it's a quality of the mind that knows what's happening as it's happening. So it really takes in the senses of the experience. So this talk, you're sitting in a chair, you feel your body contacting the chair, you feel your feet on the floor, you're seeing the screen and maybe the things around your screen, you feel the airflow, the temperature, are you warm, are you cool? Maybe you've done baking. You may have some smells of the kitchen or coffee. Maybe you have a taste in your mouth from drinking something. So this is mindfulness. It's being present, it's experiencing and being curious about what we're doing. So here's the thing. Our brains are designed to maximize efficiency and minimize mindfulness. If we were always mindful, we wouldn't get very much done because we'd be, oh, look at this, feel this, smell this, taste this, hear this. So it has, we're kind of swimming upstream. We have to go out of our way intentionally to be mindful. But here's the thing, we can do it anywhere, anytime, for any duration. And it helps to activate that prefrontal cortex. That is where we want to build and where we want to respond. So when we're in the present and we're here, we just naturally come into focus and attention. It's when we're volleying back and forth between the past, maybe we're ruminating, maybe things didn't work out how we wanted in a certain situation, maybe we have guilt or regret. That's the past. That doesn't live in the present. The future is all about fear and anxiety, excitement. But that's not here either. So our thoughts frequently go back and forth. We're doing so much time travel, and it has its purpose. We have to plan. We have to, we can't just I'm in the present all the time. But we can intentionally, okay, I'm here writing a list for what I need to do this afternoon, or for going and getting groceries. That's staying in the present. You're just planning something in the future. But the more we can come back to present and mindfulness and include the senses, both the stronger the senses will become because we're tapping into them more and the physical body. And the more we will activate that prefrontal cortex, which also has tremendous health benefits too. Meditation is, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of, is mindfulness meditation and vice versa. And meditation, it includes mindfulness. Meditation, you're right here, you're right now, you're practicing. It's a practice. Whereas mindfulness is it's just kind of the state of being here, experiencing now. So you're walking with your dogs, you're noticing the birds, you're feeling the tug on the leash. You feel the sun on your body, the warmth of it. So mindfulness can be included anywhere. Meditation is more of a dedicated practice that you do. And it's kind of trying to waken us up beyond the conditioned mind and our habitual thinking. And there are lots of types of meditation. When I've asked people about, do you ever meditate? Or I have a father-in-law who's got dementia, and I've been reading the research about the amazing effects of meditation on the brain and on dementia. And they're like, we can't meditate. I can't meditate. I've tried it. I can't shut my brain off. And here's the thing, noticing, letting the mind wander and bringing it back is a good thing, and it's okay. And it's going to happen. Remember, 60 to 80,000 thoughts. We're not able to shut it off, and we don't want to shut it off, because noticing and then noticing the thoughts, bringing it back, is actually building a pathway to using and activating the prefrontal cortex. That's helping us rewire. So every time we return, we're going to use the breath today as our anchor. But every time oh yeah, I was thinking, I'm coming back. It's an opportunity to practice being present. It's an opportunity to build those pathways. You will find that you have less chatter when you practice this, and it will be more accessible as well. So studies show that mindfulness meditation improves sustained attention. It improves conflict scores. It lowers anxiety. It lowers anger and fatigue, because we're not thinking about, back then, I'm holding on to something in the past, or I'm in the future. That takes a lot of energy. So having that mindful meditation helps to decrease that fatigue. It decreases the stress-related release of cortisol, which is a hormone that has its use for short term, but long term can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. It increases memory retrieval. It increases the efficiency of executive processes, right? We're activating that prefrontal cortex. And the neuroplasticity can actually change the structure and function of the brain. If it was a pill, I think everyone would be on it and the world would be a better place. But it's better than that, because it's not a pill. It's accessible anytime. And here's the crazy part. Even short practices of 20 minutes a day for 3 to 5 days showed statistically significant improvements. So you don't have to be a yogi. You don't have to do it for years, and you don't have to do it for an hour. So it's amazing, and you get benefits from it. So Carol meditates. Does anybody else do meditation or mindfulness, or is any of this familiar? Okay, good. You're going to learn a little bit today. So breath work is kind of the vehicle that we're going to use to be mindful. That's what we're going to do today. And it's going to be a practice where we're following the breath. And so it's kind of a mindful meditation. The last technique that we're going to do is called tapping. And this is based on the emotional freedom technique that was developed back in the 70s by a man named Gary Craig. And what it does is it kind of integrates modern psychology with Eastern medicine. And the way that it works is by stimulating acupuncture meridian points as you focus on a negative situation or emotion or a stressor or a problem. And what happens is you're thinking about that activates the part in the brain related to that specific incident situation. As we tap through the points, that tapping sends calming signals to that part of the brain that's active, and it can change your response to that and really dissolve the response. Most of the research on this is done with veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it actually heals them from it. It's tremendously powerful, and it is super fast and really effective. I've used it with hundreds of clients and patients with amazing results. It's something that you can use anywhere, anytime, and for any symptoms that you might be feeling. It's also been shown in the research to be really effective with pain and anxiety, depression, mental health. It can improve vitality. It can improve immune function, cognitive skills, athletic performance, phobias. So it's a really powerful technique. So here's the thing. We have all these techniques. We're going to do lifestyle, healthy lifestyle choices, but we're dynamic beings, meaning that things are always changing and fluctuating in our lives. And sometimes no matter what you do, you can't let it go. You can't calm. You're in this state of reactivity. And that's how we're wired. And that's fine. Allow it, be kind to yourself, be compassionate, and accept the feelings that you have. If you have things where, like movement, sometimes I gotta just move. That's what I do. Sometimes you may just need to call a friend and vent. That's fine. If it's a really serious thing, maybe call a crisis hotline and talk to somebody who's skilled and trained. So I'm not saying like, oh, these are all that if you're not doing these things, then you're damaging your body and causing inflammation. The more you use these, the easier they'll be, the better accessible, they're more accessible they will be in situations. But just be kind to yourself. We got a lot out there in the world, and we got a lot in here in our world. So, but these can definitely change the way that you feel. I was just watching the World Championship velodrome racing and actually saw guys at the start line tapping. And I was like, nice. It brings focus, it brings attention, and it just kind of gets those butterflies out. So it was really cool to see that. So any questions at this point? And you have handouts that have all of the techniques that I'm going to go over with you. So let's take a 5-minute break. And then come back and we'll do the exercises. Thanks so much for your attention. So 10 o'clock, I have 9:55 right now. So let's be in your seats ready to go at 10 o'clock, and we'll get started. Okay, let's have everybody come on back. Can you hear me now? You can put in the chat. There was a person who couldn't hear.
Yes, I can
Okay.
hear you. I know, sorry, I'm just having a struggle, I think, with my computer or something.
That's okay. It happens.
This is one of my big triggers.
Me too. I have to do a lot of deep breathing around my computer and IT problems. Yeah, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. Okay. Is everybody back? I see. Here comes Lisa. All right. And Marilyn, I'm going to just introduce this and then maybe Marilyn will be back. So we're going to start with a breathing mindfulness meditation. And I want everybody to sit nice and kind of upright in your chair. Your spine is neutral. Your feet are supported either on the floor, or if they don't touch the floor, run and grab a box or a book, or maybe move your seating. But I want you to be supported. I want you to be alert, but relaxed. So with all of these exercises, I want you to kind of have an element of curiosity and acceptance and discovery, kind of a kindness. Your mind is going to wander. That's what we're wired to do. Just bring it back. Remember, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a helpful thing. So a lot of people in previous years when I've been doing these are like, I just keep going off into thoughts. It's okay. Be kind to yourself and just kind of nudge it back, put that thought on a cloud and let it float away. Even if you don't get past these exercises, they're still really powerful and can promote change. So what I want everybody to do is close your eyes and I want you to scan your body. So you're going to just start at the top of your head and you're going to just go down like a line, moving down through your head. You're looking for any areas of tension, tightness, clenched or contracted holding feelings, any discomfort. Following that line, you're going to go down through your chest, your back, down through the belly, the legs, the arms, into the hands, the feet. So really scan the body and make any mental notes of where you feel tension, clenching, discomfort, tightness. And just note it. So we're going to come back and repeat this after the exercises. And I want to just have you tune into it for a moment. So I think these exercises are best done with your eyes closed to kind of take out some of the visual distractions. And we're going to spend a few minutes on each element of it. And again, you've got all of this information in your handout, so you don't need to try and hold it in your head or remember it. And actually, they're really easy, so you should be able to hold it. So we're going to just start with observing the breath. And I want you to just be a curious observer. You're not directing it. You're not influencing it. You're just noting, where in your body do you feel the breath? Where do you feel it coming in? Where do you feel it going out? How does it feel in your body? What parts are moving? What sensations do you have? So we're just noticing. And when you have a thought, you're going to gently just come back to that anchor of the breath. And you're just noticing the in and the out. Almost like a wave washing up on the shore and then going back out. Kind of, is there a rhythm to it? Do you hear parts of the breath? What other senses do you notice as you're observing the breath? So not directing, just feeling it. Where do you feel it? And when you have a thought, just gently return to the breath. Imagine that really as your anchor. So as you observe over time, do you notice any changes from when you first started paying attention? Where in the body do you feel it? We're going to shift to a focus now only on your exhale. So we were just focusing on the in and the out. Now we're going to just observe the exhale. So we're following the exhale. Not trying to influence it or lengthen it or shorten it. We're just observing. What does it feel like in the body? Just observing the exhale. And when you notice that you're thinking, just gently come back. Gently come back. Focusing just on the exhale. Where do you feel it in your body? If you notice thoughts, just gently bring your attention back to your exhale. So just following the exhale. Not trying to influence it. Just a curious observer. Just following the exhale. Just observing the breath as you're exhaling. Now what we're going to do is keep your eyes closed. We're staying on the exhale. What I want you to do is, if you found any areas of tension or clenching or discomfort, I want you to attach those to your exhale. So as you exhale, you're going to release any tight area, any clenched area. You're still observing. You're not changing the breath. You're just adding a passenger to it. as you exhale. So just releasing any tension, any discomfort with every exhale, letting it go. Again, if you notice thoughts, just gently return to your exhale. And let go of any tension, any discomfort as you exhale. So we're just watching, feeling the letting go and feeling what the exhale feels like in your body. Just observing the exhale and letting go of any tension, contracted or clenched feeling. Just focusing on the exhale. And if you have any thoughts, just bring them back. Focusing on the exhale and the release. Okay, so I'm going to have you just gently open your eyes and come on back. And we can just do with a show of hands. Did anybody feel different? We're going to do one more breathing, but I just want to know, did anybody feel any different from before the exercises to after? Do you notice any change? Good. Like a change for better or for more relaxed, Kim said. Good. And what's so cool is you guys did this. It wasn't me doing it. So accessible. And great for filling those 30 seconds when something sets us off. So the next exercise, it's called the 4-7-8 breath. And this was developed by Dr. Andrew Weil. He's a Harvard-trained MD who's traveled the world studying different cultures and how they view illness and healing. And he developed this technique. And I was at one of his conferences and somebody asked him, if you had one thing to give all of your patients, what would you give? And he said, I would give them the 4-7-8 breath, because it is so powerful. He's had patients get off of blood pressure medications. He's had patients who with heart arrhythmias who no longer have heart arrhythmias because of it. It's helped with anxiety. It's helped with cravings, and a number of other things. And here's the thing, it's 4 cycles. So you just do 4 breath cycles. So the way it works is you breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. You hold your breath for 7 and you exhale through your mouth for 8. You're going to put your tongue kind of on the gum line between your 2 front teeth and leave it there for the whole time. So when you exhale, you're going to exhale around the sides of your tongue. Here's the thing, the ratio is what is most important. It doesn't matter how fast you count. And the big limiter is really holding your breath. So if you start this exercise at a certain cadence with the inhale and you notice, oh, I can't hold my breath for 7, stop the exercise and start again and count a little bit faster. So I'm going to just repeat the instructions for this as we go. I'm not going to count because everybody's going to be different with your counting, but you just do 4 cycles. and you're doing in through the nose for 4 counts, which means you're breathing in 2, 3, 4, you're holding for 7, and then you're breathing out for 8 counts. So that whole time, so you're measuring your inhale and you're measuring your exhale by the rate at which you count. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so let's get started. So to start, what you're going to do is exhale fully, and then you're going to start counting on your next inhale. So let's get started whenever you kind of exhale fully. You're going to inhale to the count of 4 through your nose. You're going to hold for 7, and you're going to exhale for 8 through your mouth. So in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. 4 cycles. In through the nose for 4, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. In through the nose for 4, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. 4 cycles, and then you can just breathe normally. So you're breathing in through the nose for 4, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. In through the nose for 4, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. And then just breathe normally after you've done 4 cycles. In through the nose for 4, hold for 7, out through the mouth for 8. And then just breathe normally after your 4 cycles. And when you're done, you can open your eyes. So in through the nose for 4, hold for 7, and out through the mouth for 8. And then open your eyes when you're finished. Okay. That go okay for everybody? I love that one. I do that all the time walking. So here's what you want to do. You do twice a day, 4 cycles. After a month or 6 weeks, you can increase to 8 cycles, but you never do more than 8 consecutive cycles. I don't know why. Something magic happens there. But the more you do this, the easier it'll be, and the calmer you'll be. Okay. So I'm going to move on to tapping. And what we're going to do is I'm going to just explain the steps, and then I'll show you the points, and then we'll go through it together. So what I want you to do is I want everybody to think of a situation or a memory that is emotionally charged or stressful. So for the purposes of this exercise, don't think of a traumatic 10 out of 10 thing. If you're like, I can't think of anything, I'm going to be leading this exercise with a stress and overwhelmed feeling. And you're welcome to just kind of repeat in your head what I'm saying, but add maybe what your symptoms are. So when you practice this by yourself, talk out loud. For the purposes of today, or in any group setting or public setting, you're going to do it in your head, and it doesn't matter which you do. So we're going to keep the phrasing in the negative, again, to activate the part of the brain that is associated with that situation or event. This could be a challenge with a family member, or maybe you feel anxious or worried or angry or overwhelmed. What I want you to do, does everybody have kind of an idea of something? Thumbs up. Okay, I want you to do a quick scan of what you feel in your body in terms of reaction when you think of this. So on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 is I'm jumping out of my skin because this is so stressful or scary or overwhelming or whatever. 0 is I can think about it and I don't feel anything. So I want something that's at least a 5 for this exercise. But it'll still work if you follow along with me. So you're going to do that rating. That's really important because, and where you feel it in your body, because we're going to do that after. So the points I'm going to just show you, and then I'll remind you as we go through. So you're going to do what's called your setup phrase on the side of your hand, the pinky side of your hand. And you can do all your fingers, 1 finger, 2 finger. You can tap on both sides of your body. You can tap on one side. You can cross over. Not a huge, like, if you don't do it this way, it won't work. That's not how this is. So you're going to do your setup phrase. Your setup phrase is where you describe your feeling or your incident, and then you add a phrase of self-acceptance. So, for example, even though I have this super stressed out feeling, I deeply care about and accept myself. Even though I have anxiety about getting everything done, I care about and accept myself. Even though I'm upset about how much I've scheduled for myself and I don't feel like I have time for myself, I deeply care about and accept myself. 3 rounds. It doesn't have to be the same words. It can be describing your situation. The self-acceptance is important because, again, we're getting at the subconscious and the conscious. If it doesn't sound like you know, any phrase of self-acceptance, it can be like, I know I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm doing my best. That's fine too. Then we go into what's called the reminder phrases. That's how you're feeling as you are thinking about this event. So it could be some of the feelings in your body when you did your rating scale. You're going to start at the top of your head. This stress, this anxiety, this pit in my stomach, you're going to tap 6 to 7 times. I don't count. You don't need to count. Just kind of tap as you go. Inside of your eyebrows. And again, 1 hand is fine, 2 hands fine. This stressed out feeling. Outside of your eye on the bone. I'm going to do 2 fingers there. You can do 1. This pit in my stomach feeling. Under the eye on the bone. These thoughts that I just can't shut off. This worrying, this anxiety. You're going to go upper lip, right below the nose. These thoughts, just ruminating thoughts in my head. Chin under the lip. This stress, this overwhelmed feeling that I just can't get everything done. Now, the next one we're going to do is the collarbone. So under the collarbone and a little bit toward your armpit, you're going to feel a little hollowing. If you use 3 fingers, 4 fingers, you're going to hit it. This stress that I'm feeling, these ruminating thoughts. Okay, the next one is 4 inches below your armpit. So kind of right around the bra line for women, nipple line for man. You can do it 1 arm. You can do this with your hand. You can cross over. So that's kind of the side of the body below the armpits. Then we don't do the hand. We come back to the top of the head and keep going. Okay. So those are the points. We're going to start over. If you have your own thing, you can do that in your head as I'm going. If you're doing mine and you think, oh, I have a headache or I have back pain, throw that in there on the reminder phrase, or do that as your part of your setup. So make it your own. it's not a problem to go along with what I'm saying. You'll probably still feel a difference. So does everybody have their rating, what it feels like in the body? Thumbs up if you do. Okay, here we go. Side of the pinky, or sorry, the pinky side of the hand. Even though I have this overwhelmed stress feeling, I deeply care about and accept myself. Even though I, once again, have stacked too many things on my plate and I don't know if I can get them done, I deeply care about and accept myself. Even though I have this stress, I deeply care about and accept myself. Top of the head. These feelings of overwhelm. Inside of the eyebrow, this guilt for doing this again, feeling like I should know better. Outside the eye on the bone, this pit in my stomach feeling that I'm not going to get everything done. Under the eyes on the bone, this anxiety that I feel. Under the nose, these thoughts that are just running wild in my head. I don't feel like I can think clearly. The chin, these thoughts, just ruminating, repeating thoughts. This neck pain on the under the collarbone. Under the arm, this headache. Top of the head, this feeling that I can't think clearly. Inside of the eyebrows, this pit in my stomach, this feeling like I'm just not going to be able to do it, this anxiety. Outside of the eye, this neck pain. Under the eye, this headache. Upper lip, this challenge, I can't organize, I can't focus my attention. Chin, I can't turn these thoughts off. It's hard to focus. Collarbones, this neck pain. This headache. Under the armpits. This stress, this feeling of being overwhelmed. Top of the head. This worrying. This anxiety about the future. Inside of the eyebrows. This anxiety. This worrying. Outside of the eye, these thoughts that I can't shut off. Under the eye, this pit, feeling of a pit in my stomach. Top of the lip, below the nose, this anxiety. Chin, this neck pain. Collarbones, this headache, this stress, under the armpit. This overwhelmed feeling, just feeling so stressed out. Top of the head, this overwhelmed feeling. Now you're going to stop and take a deep breath. So stop tapping, take a deep breath, and then let it all out. Keep your eyes closed, and I want you to rate yourself again on your scale of 0 to 10. Feel into your body for the reaction that you had or that you have. And when you have your number, you can open your eyes. How'd that go for people? Did anybody's numbers go up? Did anybody's numbers go down?
And feel free, everyone, to unmute yourself too, so you can just respond here.
Yeah, and you can chat, type it in the chat too.
Yes, I felt my number go down. Thank you.
Good. You don't have to do it with your eyes closed. You can have your eyes open. It's totally fine.
It's very calming.
I don't exhale quickly, but it doesn't matter. It's whatever feels natural. To me, it just feels like this melting away
Right.
of, and here's what's crazy. So because this works at the level of the subconscious and the conscious, you may start with, I had a fight with my husband. And I'm just tapping or with somebody. And then I'm tapping and I'm not getting the same things I started with. And then something else comes up. Oh, when I was a kid, or I had a boyfriend in the past who did some horrible things. Then I tap on that. So there's a layering of our experiences. And sometimes what happens is when you take off that layer that's most apparent to you or top of mind, you might find something underneath that rises to the top, or you may find you have symptoms. Like when we started tapping, I didn't have neck pain, and then I got neck pain. And so I started tapping on that. I don't have neck pain anymore. So it's kind of, you tap for what comes up. Let's say you're not at a 0. You do a few rounds and you're not at a 0. You can do it again. Maybe you need more rounds. This time, what you're going to do is add a couple modifications. So even though I still have this stress that I'm feeling, I deeply care about and accept myself. And then the reminder phrase is I still, or this remaining headache, this remaining neck pain. So you're going to just change both of those with the one word. If you go through and you're still not at a 0, hopefully you feel better, but it may take more rounds or more kind of sessions to get that out. The other thing is you might not be specific enough. So the more specific you can be. I've done this when I have something on my mind and I know I'm going to lie in bed and just think about it. I just talk as I tap through. I'm not even I do my little setup and then I just talk about the day or what I have tomorrow, and I sleep great. So it's not, even if you just talk about, oh, I was so mad when this happened, or I felt really bad about how I handled this situation and I feel these symptoms. You can talk and it works. I mean, it's just amazing the number of applications that you can use it for. So the points in order is something that matters. Tapping, Gary said tap 7 times. Some people say 6 times. I never count. So I just kind of tap as I'm saying things. Maybe it ends up being 5 or 8 or, and that doesn't seem to matter. So, it's a really cool, technique. And I've included in your handout links to some meditation resources that have free meditations. And then I've also attached some tapping links too. And there are apps and there are websites where you can go to YouTube videos and see tapping. I think it's most effective when it's really specific to your situation, what you're feeling, what you're dealing with. That's where that specificity and uncovering things that may be layered is where it really has a lot of power. I do it often, and it helps clear my mind and help with focus. If I'm feeling like I'm a little distracted or I'm tired in the afternoon, instead of making a cup of tea, I do a little tapping, maybe I do a meditation, and then I feel kind of revived and clear in my thinking. Are there any?
I think that there's something about the vocalization. I think that there's something about the vibration in
Mhm.
resetting our nervous system that's important too. Or like I found myself, I really needed to do like a long exhale, or there was just like these kind of spontaneous sighs coming out.
Yeah.
That I think it's really good to give ourselves permission for that. Sometimes I feel like we tend to hold
Yeah.
things in.
Yeah, because it's all, it's all releasing. I mean, it's kind of that curiosity and giving yourself what you need. That's the part of the acceptance too. And you can do this as many times as you want to. There's no prescription. It's entirely up to you. We did 3 rounds. Sometimes I do 6 or 7 rounds if I've got just a lot going on or I'm just revved up. And usually you'll feel kind of a shift. Like Tracy, you just said you felt like you needed to exhale more. So you'll feel like, I don't even know what I started tapping about. Those reminder phrases, I'm not getting them. I'm not getting the feelings. I'm not getting the script. I'm done. It's gone. It's not in my consciousness anymore. And that's when you can stop. So usually you will feel kind of a shift. You'll feel a release. You'll feel like, I don't even know what my reminder phrases are anymore. And those are all good signals that, you can stop tapping, you can do your reassessment. And then if you feel like, okay, I'm not quite at a 0, but a 2 is good enough for me, then I'm done. And then maybe something else comes up and I tap on that, but follow it, as long as it's not leading down a traumatic path. That being said, this is a highly successful technique for stress and traumatic stress. But as we're getting started, I think, trying to stick with things that are not traumatic, but that might come up if that's somewhere deeper as you're uncovering.
Heidi, I just want to say a couple things here. One, I realize it's 10:40, and so 10:30 was our time. So if folks have somewhere they need to go or be, please feel free to do that. This is I think, an important thing. There's a lot of us that don't really know, what does that mean, trauma?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that our trauma is being triggered and when to back off on something?
I think tapping on the reaction in your body is good. It's thinking back, it's reaching back to a memory that was really triggering for you, where you feel like, I don't know if I can handle this. That memory, don't start there. You can chip away at things associated with that as a way to kind of diffuse it. But tuning into how your body feels, if you're like, then tapping those feelings without that event is a good way to kind of help those feelings let go and move. I mean, that's what acupressure, it just helps energy flow, energy move, and things get stuck from our past, our lives. And so I think tapping on those feelings, those emotions that you're having is okay. And can help you, be able to function. And some things, like I've had crazy grief that I'm just like, and I just tap without anything as I'm crying. And it just helps that grief move through me easier. It's not get rid of your grief, resist it. That isn't it at all. It's allowing it to be here, but it's helping that energy move so that I can kind of process it, I guess. Yeah. Any other questions? I wanted, if people have 2 more minutes, do your body scan again, close your eyes, and the way that you felt or things that you noticed before doing these techniques, revisit to see if those things are different. Just real quick. And then that's okay. I was just, we did the body scan before we started all this stuff. And I just wanted people to just do that quick body scan again, check in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, just to see how you feel. And if you notice any change from before we did these techniques. Anybody feel different?
I feel my feet more.
You feel your feet more? Like more grounded? Oh no, I think you froze again. Anybody else? You can type in the chat. Good. So learning something new. Good. Well, I really appreciate everybody's time. I apologize for going over. You have handouts on these. Next steps would be trying to incorporate these into your life. Even 5 minutes of doing, observing the breath mindfully is a start and can really create change and your ability to respond versus react. In a situation, remember we have that 30 seconds, breathing, finding the breath. If you're alone or in public, you can do tapping, but realize that you do have a choice in the way that we respond. We don't have a choice in what's coming our way, but we do have a choice in how we respond, and we can do that in a healthy way that really promotes the best outcome for our bodies. And if you have a habit of reacting with somebody and you change to responding, they're going to respond and not react. It changes your relationships around those things. So that's really exciting too. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming and for your attention. So take care.
That was excellent. Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Tracy.
Heidi. There's some fabulous gems there. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here, and to our YouTube channel people that watched through the whole thing. Great job, everybody. Let's go out and try to live our best lives.
Yeah.
One little step at one breath at a time.
Yeah. We're breathing anyway. Why not give it a job or tune into it? Take care. Thank you so much. Have a good day.